And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Every Point a Winner, and this is episode 26. We're going to go over the very, very important stats that will show a big pointer to who actually won and lost over the weekend. If your side won, well, congratulations to you. I know Scotty was on cloud nine once the Broncos got up. I think Peter had a bit of a hard task learning that Dolphins were going to destroy. I don't think he thought it was going to be a Dolphins win against his hapless St George side, but the manner in which they destroyed St George was something else. They've got a real issue there and I've told you that for a long time, with the captain's son. The coach's son and the other half. There's some real issues there, probably similar to what issues have haunted Newcastle this year. Robert Timms, he's not sponsoring our program, but I must say that's a nice drop. And you need it at this time. I'm rugged up like I'm in the snow, and I tell you what, over the weekend, those players would have loved to have run out there and warmed up as much as they could, because it was freezing. But some of the hard hits, you could hear them through the TV. It was very, very brutal gladiator sport on the weekend. Talking of which, and I was very happy, as you know, with the Newcastle Knights coming from the death. I really thought once they got booed off at halftime, I thought, can they respond to that? It wasn't a good thing to hear, but you can understand the frustration of how bad they've played this year. But what a comeback. They certainly kicked them up the butt. Not a good practice to do, but maybe they needed it. But they definitely responded in that second half. And Manly did not raise a whimper in that second half. It was 16-0. They got over one more try. It was 16-0 at halftime. And the thing was, within the first couple of minutes, Lehigh Hopewadi went over and our try was disallowed because he virtually got knocked out. I think it was Dylan Lucas that came in to tackle him, and it didn't. They were taking a while to decide whether it was a try or not, and I thought, I was only listening to it on the radio until I saw it later, and I didn't realise he'd let go of the ball. But geez, I was cursing because he was our lead banker. I'm just looking over to the post we put up on for the Friday match. We had Manly 1-12 and Newcastle 1-12 for the margin, but Lehigh Hopewadi was our banker. So that was a significant blow to our tips, but because he was a HIA before the end of the first half, we got all our doubles back there. We had one or two doubles left remaining, and our second banker, Fletcher Sharp, went over twice, but we needed Tolito Kola, and luckily we got our double there. So hopefully you followed the tips there, VPAW. Dylan Lucas was a little bit of a letdown for us. We also had Dale Cherry Evans, and well, after he did a couple of mistakes and kicked out on the full, it was not a good game for him, nor a good result, because it looks like his State of Origin career is over, now being fully replaced by Tom Dearden. The other guy we had that I was riding home, we had for a 2 and 3-legged parlay, was Ethan Bullymore. When he burst away and set up Manly's last try, I thought he was going to score himself, but unfortunately, and it cost us probably about $100 at least, that he didn't score himself. Just going on to we're going to look at the stats now as we get off that page, and the very important stats here. Let's have a look at the possession rate. It was 53%, surprisingly, to Manly, which they had most of the possession in the first half. 47 to the Knights. Tackles made, 379 for Manly and this was amazing stats here, an extra 50-plus tackles here, 421 to the Knights, missed tackles 32 to the Knights, but here's a bad, very big pointer here, 37 missed tackles for Manly. It's so unlike them. Phoenix Crossland came up with an absolute working man's game, 51 tackles there, and it was Jake Trbojevic was having his first run back from all his HIA issues he's had at knockouts, 45 for him. Most run meters, Greg Marshy, 267, and Tolutau Kola, who's playing it, have an outstanding year, 304. Most line breaks, James Schiller, and he was having a very rough game until he actually set up a try, I believe, in that second half, and did a lot better than he did in the first half. And also it was Tafawa Sipley. He also went over for a try. I was hoping it was going to be Ethan Bullimore, of course. So the missed tackle is very, very important there. But surprisingly, the Knights had to make a lot more tackles. So maybe that actually saved them from being behind by 30 points at halftime in that first half. So anyway, go over to the team stats and let's see some very important rates here. The completion rate, 84%, pretty high for Manly, but they didn't do that good in the second half, did they? 73% completion rate for the Knights, which is a lot more surprising. Line breaks 8 to Manly, 6 to the Knights. Tackle breaks 37 to the Knights and only 32 to the Eagles. Just looking here at the passing, pretty high on the receipts there. They didn't do too many mistakes there, but the dummy passes were 12 to Knights to 2 to Manly. That can go either way, though. It depends how effective that the defence is reading you. Just looking at the Bombers, it was 5 bombs to 4. Grubbers 2 to 1. There's not much that'll tell us there. But as I said, those tackles made and the missed tackles of Manly was an important factor. Another bad factor for Manly was 17 ineffective tackles. 17. As Newcastle started to play like the old Newcastle and throw it around, and only 7 ineffective tackles. That's a nice little birdie outside the window here. 7 ineffective tackles to the Knights. Errors, surprisingly, 11. Newcastle, 9 to the Eagles. Ruck infringements, 5 to the Knights and 2 to Manly. And not much else there. There was 3 players put on report. One of them was a joke for the Knights. And only 1 head injury assessment. And, of course, that was a failed one for Lehigh Hopewadi. So it was a surprise way to start. We got our money back. And hopefully you got that double that we got. Fletcher Sharp as our second banker into Tolutau Kola, who's been very good for us here on EPAW. We'll get to the second match in 1 second. The second and third match brought us good financial gains. It was the Storm versus Cowboys. There's a few things that went against us in the Cowboys game. It was 38-14 at Amy Park there, and it was a little bit loose underfoot, but great handling from both sides. Let's have a look at the very important stats here. And the best thing was Elise Qatar, he virtually went over in the 4th minute. He was our standout banker. So hopefully you jumped on board, people. And we had Jackson Paulo, who gave us a nice double there. I think we netted about $116 on this one. And we're only having $1.50 doubles, $1.50 3-leg parlays, and and $5 on the 4 try scorers, your two backups and your two bankers. And that's why I refuse to play odds on, because you're going to get nothing back for your win bet if they do go over. And so Elise Qatar got us a nice little collect straight away into Polo. Our second collect, which also gave us a 3-leg parlay, was Jerome Hughes, and he went over in the 6th minute. So it was beautiful collecting all that money inside the first half. It was fantastic. I was entertaining Nelson Asafa Solomona. He was really, really good odds. He went over in the 58th minute, and Tyron Wishart, I've had him all last year. I had him in the back half of the season. I had him out there at 4-1. He went over as well in the 78th minute. Scott Drinkwater, he's always one that you can put in there, and he went over with Robert Darby. The one that let us down, and it seems to be we've collected off him every time when he plays in the centres, which I still think he has more room to move in the centres. But Coach Payton keeps on saying, no, it's Dearden and Purdue. Dearden and Purdue next to each other. But he can see, he's distributing the ball well, but he's not being as effective. So I'm still not happy with that position. I don't know how you feel out there. But as a punter, I think, had you swapped him with Jack Laban, there's no doubt about it that I reckon we would have picked up a 4th double there. But anyway, let's get on to the important stats and go to the player stats here. Most tackles, Harry Grant, an outstanding match, 39. He's back into the driver's seat. John Bateman, yet again, another workhorse, 44. Most line breaks, Jerome Hughes. Well, he nearly scored three or four tries. He could have got held up a couple of times and dropped the ball once. Scott Drinkwater, 2 line breaks. But as we go to the team stats, a lot of things will show evidence here of how Melbourne destroyed the North Queensland Cowboys. 54% possession to 46 to Melbourne. Time in possession, 29, nearly close to half an hour, and for Melbourne, and only 25 for the Cowboys. All runs meters, they ran rings around them, an extra 200 meters there, plus post-contact meters, really important. 668 from Melbourne. They were throwing the ball around like a hotcake. 516 for Cowboys. Line breaks 6 each. Tackle breaks, very important here. Tackle breaks 42 for Melbourne and only 28 for Cowboys. Ineffective. If Payton listened to me, he'd put Purdue back in the centres and you'd have more line breaks. He's got that speed, and if you give him the ball on the burst, he's very hard to catch. Kick return meters, that's really important too. Surprisingly, they had a higher rate here. The Cowboys at 155 and only 110 for Melbourne. I'm surprised that's the opposite to what I believed. Total passes were very, very similar. Dummy passes, 43, but they were well read by Melbourne. 43 for Cowboys and only 18 dummy passes for Melbourne. Just looking also here, forced dropouts. That's important too sometimes, this stat. Melbourne forced Cowboys to drop it out twice and only once for Cowboys on the Storm. Bombs, 6-7, fairly even. Grubbers were fairly even as well. Defence, effective tackles, 86% each. Tackles made, here's a vital cog that's going to take the wind out of the Cowboys' sails. 347 tackles made and only 313 to Melbourne. So 347 for the Cowboys, 313 for Melbourne. Missed tackles is another big pointer here. 42 missed tackles for the Cowboys and 28, only 28, nearly half for the Melbourne Storm. Ineffective tackles, surprisingly, swayed 22-16 to Melbourne. Intercepts 1, to Melbourne. Just looking at anything else, the negative plays. There were 16 negative plays and errors for the Cowboys. They just couldn't get it together. And very, very interesting, those stats. Both of them used nearly all their interchanges, except Melbourne only used the 7. Okay, so that was a pretty decisive victory there. Going forward, Cowboys have got to outlast this Origin program. As Scotty always mentions, it's a big test for the sides at this time of the year, and he's spot on. The next game certainly didn't make one of our good mates here, Peter Connors, very happy at EPAW. 56 Dolphins over Dragons 6. That's a 50-point win. Phenomenal. At Suncorp Stadium. This one crushed me. Hopefully you followed all my doubles and parlays here, because I ran out of time. I had to run out and do something very important. I thought, do I put my bets on? No, I'm already $116 in front, and I cost myself between $150 to $180, because here we go. We had our standout banker was Cody Nikorima at really good odds. I think he was around 275 by memory. Then we had Connolly Lemuelu, our second banker. So all these bankers, main bankers, were leading into the doubles that were happening. And Herbie Farnworth just sealed all the trebles. We had three doubles and two leg parlays, and the 3 leg parlays, and that's what killed me when I saw what was happening. And Herbie Farnworth went over again. I also entertained us with the idea of having Hamiasai Tabuai-Fidow, but you only would have got a much smaller double to what the doubles we had with Cody Nikorima being the banker. So many tries. It was 10 tries to 1. So you could have basically had any of the try scorers you like, but Herbie's virtually gone over for the last 5 games straight. We did have a couple of players for St George leading into some of those doubles, which let us down, and the only one that went over was Valentine Holmes. But I walked away with my tail between my legs, because letting all that money go from that game. But I'm praying and hoping all you punters back those doubles, especially the 2 lead bankers there, and Connolly Lemuelu, who is good odds, nearly 3 to 1, 7 to 2, into Herbie Farnworth, and our lead banker Cody Nikorima, who is virtually 7 to 2. That's value for you. You can have all these odds on favourites that start at $1.60, $1.40, but even if you put them together, your double pay is crap. It might pay $2.60, and you can have 3 of them. They're not guaranteed to score, but they are okay if you chuck them in as a late inclusion. So let's have a look at the player stats. The most tackles here were Kurt Donahue, 29, and I don't think he was 100% fit either by the end of the game. Toby Couchman, he's an animal in defence, 45 tackles for Couchman. Shame the rest of his side's letting him down. Most run meters, Clint Gutherson, 115, and 209 to Herbie Farnworth. He is a freak of nature, Herbie Farnworth. Watch out for him in the second Origin for sure. Jermaine Osago had an outstanding game as well, and also scored. Let's have a look at the team stats. These will be very, very important. St George, 40% possession, 60 completion rate for the Dolphins. Time in possession, only 20 minutes St George, 30 minutes Dolphins. And I tell you who had an outstanding game, who was distributing all the plays, was, of course, Katoa. And we all know he's going to be a star of the future, barring severe injury. He's an absolute legend who's a young kid who's got so much potential. I know Andrew Johns thinks so highly of him. He's already placed him up there on a pedestal. Tackle breaks, 27 tackle breaks to Dolphins, to 22 for Saints. Average set distance, 58 metres, nearly 60 metres. Wow. Oh, that's going from your own 20 to nearly the try line for the Dolphins. Phenomenal. Or inside the red zone. 35, only 35 St. George, just absolute nonplussed in the forwards there in this game. Kick return meters, this is embarrassing. 251 kick return meters for Dolphins, 69 to St. George. That's hang your head in shame stuff. I'm sorry, but it is unbelievable that you may as well not look at any of the other stats. They threw 33, St. George threw 33 dummy passes, but they were the dummies because they didn't work, and only 15 to the Dolphins. Forced dropouts. The Dolphins put pressure on St. George as well. 2-0 for the Dolphins. 6 bombs to 4. The kicking game was off for St. George. Missed tackles, 27 to St. George, 22 to the Dolphins. Ineffective tackles, fairly similar. Penalties conceded. Well, they gave a lot more away, 7-2 there. The Dolphins, surprisingly. They both used 8 interchanges each. But and they also got 140-20 as well. It was an outstanding game of perfection as far as attack is concerned for the Dolphins. They're going forward where St. George are going backwards. And I did tell you in the preview that I'm really, really worried that they can't string more than 2 or 3 wins together. 2 is about the maximum for St. George. The Dolphins are definitely going up and up and up, and they've got so many good forwards. Lemuelu is outstanding. He's only a young kid, but some of their big forwards are going to come back from injury. They're going to be a solid semi-final or playoff in the top 8 there, no doubt about it, Dolphins. And they've already caused massive boilovers. They've beaten nearly all the top sides. They've lost games they shouldn't have, but Wolfie is doing an outstanding job, and I did give you a heads up on Wolfie, especially when he virtually was keeping it cool like Fonzie from Happy Days even after those first 4 or 5 weeks defeat for Dolphins. But that is composure, and I really like Wolfie as a coach. So let's go to the next match before we get labelled down too much there on the Dragons' disgraceful effort. And you could say the same for the St. Cronulla Sharks. At home, hosting the Warriors, Sharks 10, Warriors 40. We nearly had the perfect tipping game here because nearly all our try scores went over except our banker. And I just pushed it too far. He's been so good to us, Luke Metcalf, and he even set up a try, but he didn't score himself. So that was one that we were really sweating for pretty much the entire second half, because we've got a Halasima and a few other try scorers there, including Adam Pompey, and but we didn't have Chanel Harris-Tavita. I've had him so many times, but he's gone over twice, I think, in 2 weeks. Via Munga we didn't have. And James Fisher-Harris. It was funny when he went over the line, he's looking at his man and he's going, am I going to score this? That's what it looked like to me. He was so surprised that he was actually going to score. And it would have been his first for the year. Conversions, Luke Metcalf got 5 from 7 and Cronulla only 1 from 2. Kale Ira, there was our third leg. So we got a couple of 2-leg doubles parlays there. And the Kale Ira, we had linked up with Luke Metcalf, which would have been the perfect collect for us. Unfortunately, Nicholas Hyams did not have the greatest of matches. And Cronulla, as Scotty said, this year seemed to be Well, he calls them pretenders. I won't be that harsh, but they just didn't show up. And Warriors are a serious, serious title contender threat to any side that plays them. They are winning away from home like they're playing at home. It's phenomenal. Everything seems to be working for them. And they still have a few injuries out. And one of my favourite players, Ali Leatoa, I'm dying for him to come back. And one of my favourite players too, trying to think of his name, but he did not get the run in that game. Oh, anyway, yeah, he's one of their top players that scored for us the week before. It just eludes me at the moment. But let's get on to the important stats that really show up here. It was Blake Brayley, great defence every week. An absolute work animal, 53 tackles. Jackson Ford, 38. He's been playing outstanding, Jackson Ford. Most run meters here, Talakai, one of my favourite Cronulla players. Shame no one else played that good with him. 42 metres for Charles Nickel Klugstad, who was nearly the man of the match. He had an absolute blinder. Most line breaks, William Kennedy as expected, and Charles Nickel Klugstad won as well. McGuinness, I think he might have went off for a HIA at one stage, but he came back and he was passed. But yeah, his side just did not back him up. It really didn't. I think the way the game played out, we'll find out here with the team stats of what the possession rate was. It just seemed as though Cronulla barely had the ball. But it was 28 minutes to 27, so time of possession there, surprisingly more to the Sharks. They just didn't do anything with it. And let's have a look here. The completion rate, 92% for the Warriors, a near faultless game. And surprisingly, 85% for Cronulla. But there's going to be a stat here that's going to jump out of us and go, bang, there you go. Because I don't know whether there was effort, though, behind these stats. Obviously there was, but they were just dominated by the Warriors to lose by 30 points. All runs, meters, yeah, they ran an extra 200 meters there, the Warriors. Post-contact meters, 512, 516, fairly similar. Line breaks, 5 and 5. Tackle breaks, 39 to 31. Average set distance, 44. They're making a lot more ground each set, and only 37 for Cronulla. Kick return meters, this is a classic. Here is the issue here for Cronulla. They're being pinned down inside their own 20 and red zone for a long time. Kick return meters here, 212 and only 110 for Cronulla. Very ineffective. Let's have a look here. Anything else that's jumping out here? They pass the ball around a lot. 14 dummy passes, which probably worked for the Warriors, and only 3 not very advantageous for Cronulla. The kicks, 24 to 20 Warriors. Forced dropouts, 1 to Cronulla. And kick defusal, 78. Pretty good there. Under the bomb was Warriors, and only 64 there to Cronulla. They let the ball go a lot too, though, instead of trying to go for those bombs. Effective tackles, 87% to 86, fairly similar. Tackles made, 371, a lot more tackles there for Cronulla Sharks. Missed tackles, 39 Sharks, only 31 Warriors. 1 intercept, of course. Negative plays, 6-7, 7-2 Cronulla. And there's not much else that's leading us. There was a couple of head injuries, so some big boys clashing there. And of course, one of them, I don't think came back from the head injury assessment. Okay, ruck infringements, a lot more there for the Warriors, but it was the Cronulla home ground, so they're going to get the advantage there. All right, they've got a lot of soul searching to do there, Cronulla, as far as I'm concerned. And Warriors have solidified their spot, I believe, in the top three. We will have a look at the ladder and also the State of Origin sides before we wrap it up today. Let me just get a sip and warm up a bit. Thanks if you've joined in today. Thanks if you're listening or you're going to catch the replay a little bit later on after work. But the next game was Scotty's favourite game for some time. It was their second win out of the last 7 matches. Anyway, it was Broncos 44, destroying Titans 14. And when they came out in the all black or black dog outfits, and they looked like All Blacks, and they played like a great All Black side. Tony Staggs got my 3 points. He finally stood up to the plate. It's been marked very solidly this year, but when Tony Staggs is on, the whole of the Broncos is on. And I do think it was the inception of Reece Walsh back at fullback as well. He made a lot of mistakes, a little bit similar to Latrell Mitchell does, but he made up for it. I think he nearly scored 2 tries. We'll have a look in this second. And we got off to a good start here. But the players we had for Gold Coast to score, it was a double from Khan Pereira, who was very skinny, and Arama Hawa, he was a late replacement, scored in the 78th minute. Mate, I wouldn't have had him if you gave him to me as a free bet, honestly. But Gurmit Shibasaki scored off the first play in the first minute, so I was rubbing my hands together. I didn't entertain Katoni Staggs enough because he went over in the 17th minute. Corey Jensen, we didn't have him. We had Willison as our other banker. We had one other player for we had Reynolds because it was his celebration game. Adam Reynolds. So he didn't score. Not easy there. So we really didn't do too well on that one. But after the first minute, I thought, we're going to collect good off this. It was my fault for not checking in Reece Walsh, but he was fairly skinny. It was around the $1.85. Karapani, when he went over twice, I thought, where the hell has he come from? So I think it might have been his debut. He did really well. He's a big boy. Put him on the wing, and he only had to catch and pass, or catch the passes, and he went over off a couple of great line breaks. And so basically, when you get those doubles, they sort of, unless you've got them, they sort of screw you as an anytime try scorer because you're waiting for all different try scorers to go over. So 2 to Karapani and 2 to Walsh, one in the 73rd minute and once in the 75th minute or the 75th minute. Player stats, Payne Haas, 37. Now, I put him in for you, Scotty. I did put Payne Haas in an extra double because he was your tip when you rang me up. And I also had your player for the Titans, but he didn't show up either. So, yeah. It was sort of a little bit of money back for us there in that game, but it was disappointing because we started off so well with our main banker cranking up. Sean Mullany, 35 for the Titans. If you saw, I watched the pretty much extended replay of the game, and if you saw Des Hasler's face up in the box, he looked like the weight of the world was on his shoulders, and I think it is. It'd be a very frustrating side, but they've had a lot of injuries, a lot of bad injuries. The Titans this year, and the side is just very discombobulated. We're moving AJ Brimson to fullback, and then and players to the left, players to the right, players on the wing. and it's just really hard to get any momentum for him. But anyway, Payne Haas was the top try scorer there, the top tackler at 37. Most run meters, Karapani 179. Brian Kelly did have a good game, 198. And most line breaks, Tony Staggs, and the 2 for Khan Pereira that led to tries. Okay, let's go to important team stats here. Surprisingly, Titans' completion rate was 83%. So that's surprising there. 79% to the Broncos. All runs meters. Broncos just ran rings around them. 1,800 to 1,500. There you go. Post contact meters 566 to 547. Line breaks 9 to 3 in favour of the Broncos. Tackle breaks 39 to 32 to the Broncos. Average set distance, pretty much similar, around about 42 metres. Kick return meters, 133. So they were running the ball hard up from the kick returns. The Broncos over only 107. I'm getting messages on the phone. We'll just battle on through here. Offloads 9 to 8 to the Titans. They did try and throw it around and create things, but it didn't happen. Look at the dummy passes here. Broncos threw 35 dummy passes to 9 to the Titans. Very interesting. Kicked off Fusel, fairly similar here. Effective tackles, fairly similar, 86, 87. Missed tackles, 39 to the Titans and only 32 to Broncos. Tackles made, 313. And surprisingly, Broncos had to tackle more, 327. So that's interesting stat. Ineffective tackles, 17 to 13 with the Broncos leading there. Yeah, interesting. But anyway, they just dominated. They played like the Broncos of old. Can they string a couple together? That's the question. And going in and out of this state of origin period, that's the question as well. Everyone's got to go through this hard period of the year as we're in the middle of, or the start of winter. So the next game was an interesting game. I did half all my bets. It was the rain came. However, Rabbitohs came in the first half and decided not to play in the second half, or the domination of the Raiders winning 36 to 12 virtually scored an unanswered 36 points in the second half down there at Canberra Stadium. It would have been freezing, not necessarily to the locals. Probably the South, who probably actually froze to death when they come out for the second half. They probably froze to death. Oh, and well, they certainly look like they froze to death. Let's have a look here. Tries. Oh, Ethan Strange. This has killed me. I've had Ethan Strange on so many occasions. He scored a double again. I think he scored a double last week. And he's always good odds. Zach Hosking scored a double. Not on the weekend, but he scored last week. Zach Hosking, or the week before, and Sadid Sasagi, or Sasagi, Simi Sasagi. Good player. We're going to have to look at him for ATTS. Alex Johnson, we had him. Before the game started, I thought, you know who we've left out? Who I've left out here? Kolomatangi. I've left him out. I'm thinking, damn. We used to have him all the time, Kolomatangi, and a lot of the time he was just in the. Ever since they moved him to the middle, he's scoring every week. It's unbelievable. We did have Latrell Mitchell, who just did not get into the game as much as we thought he would. Ethan Strange ran rings around this side, honestly, especially in the second half. He was amazing. At halftime, as I said, it was 12-6. Let's have a look here. I was 30 unanswered points in the second half to the Canberra Raiders there. Josh Papali, it was like it was nearly a retirement send-off there to Josh Papali. I think it'll be his last year playing NRL, and phenomenal. And they've let him kick his own goal at the end there, so after scoring his try. It was very emotional for Ricky Stewart. And let's have a look at the team stats and get into the crux of the matter. Where did South stuff up? Time and possession, only 27 minutes to South, 33 to Canberra, 54% to 46% in favour of Canberra. All run metres, they ran rings around them, an extra 400 metres there to Canberra. Post-contact metres, this is massive, 646 to Canberra over only 457 for South. Line breaks, massive again, 7 line breaks to 3. They're a very entertaining side, this Canberra side. And as I said to the boys, and even the boys in the club next door, I said they've finally knitted together these young players that Ricky's nurtured and the young locals. They're really, really starting to get it all together. I think the re-inclusion of Fogarty with his kicking game definitely helped them as well. Average set distance was 41. 41 was it? Yeah. And then to Canberra and 36 to South. Kick return metres, 244 to Canberra and only 171 to South. Looking here, they threw 24 dummy passes South, but obviously Canberra had done their homework. They might have got them in the first half, but not the second half. Total passes, that really is about 20 more passes to Canberra as they threw it around. Kicking here, 900 metres, well, a lot more kicking because they had Cody Walker back. But I think he got pulled off for an injury by memory, and the same injury. So he'll be out for South's next game, whenever that is. We'll have a look at that a little bit later. Tackles made, 422. That's going to gas you. South, only 379 needed for Canberra. Missed tackles, 37 South. And here's the pointers, and 29. Only 29 missed tackles for Canberra. Ineffective tackles, 8 to South, 1 to Canberra. Big stats there. And that'll do us. So just outstanding. Congratulations to Canberra. They're just chugging along on there, up at the top, just hiding in the flanks of Canterbury, including the Warriors. They're going to chase them all the way home into the playoffs, I believe, those 3 sides. And the funny thing, I noticed that the 3 sides that are all up the top, they all have green, blue, and white in their colours, except Canterbury got blue and white. So they've all got the blue and white, and 2 of the sides chasing Canterbury have got green and with the Warriors. The green, blue, and white, phenomenal, and green of Canberra and blue. Unbelievable. Okay, let's get into the important match here. I was hoping for West Tigers to get away with this one, and we had to put our fingers to get one of our doubles over. We had Stafford Toa as one of our main bankers, but we, just looking at the tries here, Gerald Skelton was the one that we really needed. Yeah, Stafford Toa was our second banker, but Gerald Skelton went to wait to the 69th minute, and he did have a disallowed try as well. I think there's a vacuum cleaner coming up the steps here. It is Cleaning Tuesday. Usually we do this program on Mondays, but because of the long weekend, we're doing it today. I was praying that they'd beat Panthers. They were coming home like with a wet sail, but they just couldn't get it done. I really, I'll be honest with you, that boring style of play that we see from Panthers, I don't know whether I could stand it as a purist rugby league fan, standing and if the Panthers got through into the main playoffs and then into the grand final. I just think it's time for a change. And looking at the top of the the ladder. Those three sides are on top of the ladder. I'm really praying for a change of pace. I've just about had enough of Panthers. I don't know about how you feel, but I'm sorry and I apologise to you if you're a Penrith Panthers fan. But Thomas Jenkins had a blinder. He nearly had to get man of the match, but he did no good to us as try scorer. We had, it was my fault. And I do apologise, ladies and gentlemen, for having Liam Martin as our banker. He is not the prolific try scorer. He hasn't gone over for a while. And I really need to look deep inside my head for that when I did the program last Friday. But I really was, and especially when they took him off. They even took him off for a rest. I thought, they don't usually do that to him. So he must be gassed. He's such a workhorse. But even the Casey McLean had a disallowed try. He just caught his foot on the line. I thought, there's our three-leg double there. The parlay with Stafford Tower, Gerald Skelton into Casey McLean at least. But no, we had so many misfortunes over the weekend, but we had that great win from Friday, and the should have been two great wins from Friday. But me personally, hopefully you put your Dolphins bets on because you would have cleaned them up with both the Dolphins game and that first Melbourne game from the Friday. At half time, it was 10-all, so there was nothing really in the match, and both teams were very, very hungry. Let's have a look at the player stats. It was Apisai Coruscant, 58 most tackles here. Mitch Kenny, I've told you about him before. He'll just tackle till he's blue in the face and blue in the lips. 56 tackles there. Most run meters, Sunia Taruba, who we usually have as our try scorers, but I didn't think the Tigers were going to be in it for as long as what they were, and they nearly won the game. 185, Thomas Jenkins, 253 metres. So that's pretty outstanding for him. Thomas Jenkins, 5 line breaks, Taruba 1. Let's get on to the team stats here. This will tell the tale. Fairly even in possession and completion rate. A little bit more completion rate there for Panthers, getting back to their old style of play. All runs meters, very similar, probably another 40 metres there for the Panthers. Post-contact meters, Tigers were bursting onto the ball, 590 and 457 for Penrith. Line breaks 7 to Panthers. That's got to be a concern for Coach Marshall. And only 2 line breaks there from the Tigers. Tackle breaks, 25 to the Tigers, 39 tackle breaks to the Panthers. They have got some big boys right across the park. Average set distance, 40, fairly same, about 42 each. Kick return meters, 173. They were running very hungry, the Tigers, and only 148 to the Penny Panthers. Offloads, 9 each. Nothing else much we need to know here. Interesting that Tigers threw 37 dummy passes. Some of them worked, and only 4 from Panthers. They're playing that same repetitive style of play that they play. Choke the team, keep them in their own red zone, keep them in their own 20 zone, and rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Boring. Kick diffusal, fairly similar. Grubbers, fairly similar. Tackles made, 361. Surprisingly, Panthers had to tackle their hearts out at the end there. 391 to the Panthers in that second half when Tigers were coming home like Burnborough. Missed tackles, 39. That's a worry for Coach Marshall, and only 25 missed tackles for the Penny Panthers. Ineffective tackles, 16 ineffective tackles for Penrith and only 11 for the Tigers. Errors all up with a negative play, 10-8 to the Tigers. Penalties conceded fairly even, 7-6 for Panthers. And that's all you really need to know there. Jenkins really should have got the man of the match and 3 points if we were giving those points. Let's move on to the next match. And it was the last match, which was yesterday. And what I did when I saw the rain coming, I was really angry because it was such a sunny morning. I did all the washing and put it out on the balcony. And lo and behold, went to the club, saw the reserve grade, which is a great game. I think it was like a 21-hole draw or 24-hole draw between Western Suburbs Magpies and Canterbury Bankstown. So it was a fantastic game. And half of the players that are in and out of both of the sides, the Tigers and Canterbury, it was a fantastic. They weren't playing, so there were some big hits as well, and free flowing game. Talk about free flowing. Bulldogs had a big support crowd there at the stadium at Acor, and it was 30-12. But as I said, that rain came, and I was at the club going, "Oh no, my clothes!" So luckily, I sort of had them half under the shelter of the balcony, and they were damp, but it wasn't a total disaster. But that's when I decided to half my bets here in this game. And I guess lucky I did, because this time I didn't have Burton, and Matt Burton went over with that intercept. The last try, I remember him scoring like that in the early part of the game, was at Jubilee Oval last year when he scored one of the first tries for Canterbury when St George were going a lot better. And he had a runaway 60-metre try there as well. So Matt Burton went over in the 7th minute. Mitchell Moses, hopefully you put him in your doubles like we did. I just put him in there at the last minute, though we did have we had Dylan there, Dylan Brown, and Dylan Walker went over instead. He's been so good since he's come back, and he's really improved Parramatta's game 100%. He came back around the time that Mitchell Moses came back, and surprise, they both went over for the only 2 tries for Parramatta. Harry Hayes went over in the 68th minute. I entertained Galvin, but I didn't really know how long or if he'd get a run. So I left him out altogether, and he went over in the 73rd minute. He wasn't a great try. He was just there at the right time. In fact, at one stage from the play the ball, he had his back turned, giving the troops the orders. And he turned quick enough to grab the ball, and there was a massive gap there. Parramatta had gaps all over the place. Steve Crichton, just looking at the conversions here, he got 4 from 5. And hasn't he been good since he's done nearly all the kicking? It's been fantastic average-wise. Montoya, he's hot and cold, Montoya. I'm still not convinced. He's got the speed, he's got the strength, but so many times in the games that they haven't done that well, Canterbury, he's dropped the ball 3 or 4 times. So I'm not fully sold on Montoya yet, but he went over in the 18th, 19th minute. Kikau, well, he was our banker, Valami Kikau, and unfortunately that was really all she wrote there, apart from Mitchell Moses getting us home with a return money bet. Let's have a look at the player stats. Reid Marnie, 42. They took him off with 15 to play or 20 to play and gave the run to Galvin. Riley Smith, 58. He's been outstanding this year, Riley Smith, defence-wise for Parramatta. Connor Tracy, 240 most run metres. He had a big game and gave that beautiful pass to Valami Kikau on the burst, and the way he drew in 3 players to do so. Zach Lomax, 191. He set up that beautiful intercept try of Moses in the early first half. Okay, just looking here at the most line breaks, Bronson Xerri. I thought he was going to go over. He was the other guy we needed, but someone ankle tapped him, and it looked like he was going to burst over. He didn't quite put that little sidestep he puts on, and he got taken from behind. Josh Addo-Carr was the other one with a line break. We also had him, but he didn't go over. So mix and match. It was an interesting weekend. We'll just have a look at the team stats here see if we can pinpoint anything for Parramatta. Completion rate. This is a outstanding completion rate for Canterbury, 90% over the 80 minutes. That's fantastic. 67. That's a worry there for their coach. 67% for Parramatta. Looking here, all runs meters, 2,284 Canterbury. They were running rings around them, nearly double, only 1,300 for Parramatta. Post-contact meters, 710. They were just bursting, making gaps everywhere for Canterbury, 438 Parramatta. Line breaks, 6 line breaks to 2 Canterbury over Parramatta there. Tackle breaks, 38-26 Canterbury. Average set distance, 43 metres there for the Dogs, only 35 for Parramatta. It's as though they didn't. It's not as though they didn't try. Excuse me, folks. It's not as though they didn't try altogether. The Canterbury just played so well, they really didn't let them into the match. In that second half, they just destroyed them. Average, we don't need to average play the ball speed. Leave that for the refs. Total passes, 306. They were throwing it around like a hotcake. 206 for Parramatta, 306 for Canterbury. Forced dropouts. Surprising, Parramatta did well. That was probably from Moses. Moses kicking game. 2 forced dropouts there. Kick diffusal. Surprising, Parramatta was good at diffusing the bombs there. Grubbers, 7 grubbers, Canterbury to 0 Parramatta. Interesting, that one. Tackles made, 399 for Parramatta, only 304 needed for Canterbury. That's a massive stat, that one. Missed tackles, 38 for Parramatta, only 26 for Canterbury. Intercepts 2-1 to Canterbury. I think they got one near the end there. It was funny that I'm thinking of that. I was watching a little bit of the highlights next door, and I'm pretty sure Brandy Alexander backed Kiraz to score, because as he's co-commentating, I can't remember who the main commentator was, whether it was Voss or one of the other fellows, and he was going, oh. And the commentator says, Brandy's riding him on his high horse. It was very funny because I think Brandy had a nice bet on kick out to go over for any time try score. It was funny to hear that with the commentator going, go, go, go. And that's about all she wrote. So just let's have a look here. I thought a guy that I would have marked very high was Kurt Mann, played an outstanding role. And the sidestep that got him into that break, and then he set a beautiful try up for the boys, for Canterbury. It was an outstanding effort, and his defence, he was a vital reason why they didn't go further in the competition last year, when he broke his shoulder against the Cowboys, and then the playoffs started, and he wasn't there because of his injury, and they didn't go as far as what they could have, because it would have been good to see someone else in there rather than Melbourne and Panthers. But the two best sides in the end got in there. I just think they could have got to a major semi playoff there. Let's have a look at the Origin side. I think, as we said, Dale Cherry Evans had that ordinary game against the Knights, and I think that might have been the straw that broke the camel's back as far as the Queensland selectors were concerned. And it wasn't a good game for him, and Dearden's got the run here. So let's just go to the ladder first. We'll go to the ladder. Dogs are up on top there on 24 points. Raiders on 22 are second. Warriors on 22 points are third. with a less for and against. Storm are fourth with 20, so 4 points from the lead. Storm there. In fifth position, Sharks are 4 points behind the Storm. So the top four are really starting to open up because they're consistently winning games. Sharks, as I said, 4 points off there. They've lost their last two, I think, now. Cowboys back in sixth position on 15, where they had that draw, so they're 1 point behind. Dolphins have now moved to seventh, with the arrow going up on 14 points, so 1 point behind the Cowboys. Broncos now moved into the eighth. They are on all 14 points as well, but are less for and against. Ninth are Sea Eagles on 14 points. A big cluster as we've had for quite a part of the season here with these inconsistent sides. Roosters 10th with 14. Dragons 11th with 14, but they're heading down. They've really got to recover. I think that they've got to do something about their halves. That's not working, and their forwards are not penetrating enough. Yes, they've lost Christian Tuipulotu, but Valentine Holmes has been hot and cold this year. Rabbitohs 12, also on 14. Then there's a point back to Panthers. Oh no, here they come. 13. Tigers 12. God, it would have been nice if they won that because they would have hopped the Panthers and pushed the Panthers back towards the Knights. The Knights are only 1 point behind the Panthers in 15th. Eels 2 points behind the Knights in 16th, and only on 10 points also is Titans back in last position. I don't know what the future holds for the Titans. They've got some chronic injuries, and Desi's just had to shuffle his cards so much with him. And the look on his face looked like he aged another 10 years. We'll quickly go and have a look at we'll go to the home page and go to the competition here. Why are we not seeing what I'm looking for here? Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. Give me 1 second, folks. I'm looking for the draw. Okay, I need to change it where it says state of origin. So we can have a look at the sides. The Empire state of origin. And let's have a look at the team list. Coming up, and now this is at Penrith Optus Stadium at Perth, should I say, not Penrith. Got Penrith stuck in my brain. Go away. Team list. Let's have a look. Kalen Ponga up against Dylan Edwards. I expect Kalen Ponga to have a bigger game here since he really lifted in the Newcastle Knights game. So in a couple of Wednesdays away, I expect Kalen Ponga to do really well. He's up against Dylan Edwards. Now, the great matchup here is Brian To'o against Xavier Coates. And on the other centre there, it's Robert Toya, who had a fairly good game, but look who he's up against, the best centre in the world, Stephen Crichton for New South Wales. Valentine Holmes, he needs the lift. He's up against Mitchell for New South Wales. Homicide Tabuai-Fidow on the wing against Zach Lomax. That's a very interesting match. Cameron Munster against Mitchell Moses. Moses has still been dominant over Munster there, I believe. But now this is the interesting one. Tom Dearden against Nathan Cleary. Very, very interesting. Let's see how he goes, Dearden. He's had an outstanding year. Is he going to crack it at the big time? I think he can. I think we've got to be really careful as New South Welshmen against this side, especially in Perth. Fotuaike against Max King. He played outstanding for Canterbury the other day. Harry Grant versus Robson. Robson dominated Harry last time, but Harry had one of his worst games ever. Tina Fasawawali against Payne Haas. Payne Haas dominated again. He just lost his cool. Fasa Omawali. He lost his cool, and he needs to just pull it back just a fraction. Pull it back. And he might play a lot better. But Payne Haas has been freakish this year, even when Broncos have been kicking a tin in the gutter. Reuben Cotter here up against Liam Martin. Like to see a bit more improvement from Liam Martin. Kurt Capewell had a bit of a quiet one on the weekend up against Angus Crichton. Trent Liera against Isaiah Yeo, the 213s there. Interchange for Queensland, Kurt Mann, outstanding. Connor Watson, always pretty good when he comes on as the 14. The 15, Queensland, Lindsay Collins up against Spencer Lemieux. That'll be interesting, and they bring Spencer in and they don't kick to him again. I think this time they should kick to him. Let him run off the back fence and give him a belting tackle. You'll probably lose three players trying to tackle him. Jeremiah Nanai had a mixed bag of fruit the last start of Origin. Expect a bigger game from him. But Hudson Young, I'm expecting a massive game from Hudson Young. I'd like the coach Daly, to give Young just a little bit more time, please. A little bit more time. I think he'll cause some carnage. Patrick Carrigan had an outstanding match, one of the best since they've moved him back to the number 8 for the Broncos. And he's up against Ute Tokomano, and the two reserves there are Matt Burton. Great to see him get back in the side as a reserve, and Ezra Mann. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us here today on Every Point's a Winner. Please like, subscribe. Hopefully, if you followed all those tips, you still would have had a great collect on the Friday, and you would have got quite a bit of your money back from the bets we just missed out on, including the one that we lost Lehigh Hopewadi on the Friday. So join us. Let's have a look. I think there's only 4 games. There's many teams that buy because we've got that funny split round again now that the teams have gone back into Origin lockdown. I'll just have a quick look at that before we go. I think there's only about 4 games going on here. Let's have a look. Telstra Premiership. It's on the Thursday, Sharks versus St George. So 2 sides that are trying to resurrect what's happened over the last couple of weeks. I think St George had a win at least, but Cronulla, I think, have lost their last 2. That's at Shark Stadium. So that's the Thursday. Then there's one on the Friday, and that's Titans 17th versus Seagulls 9th. They both need to lift those sides. Couldn't see Titans beating the Eagles there, but we'll worry about that later when we get to it. So very, very spaced out games here. Saturday, the 14th of June, is Knights versus Roosters. Very interesting matchup. Long odds on are the Roosters after having their bye. And then on the Saturday night also, you have Cowboys who are running 6th against Dolphins 7th. Well, good luck, Cowboys, with holding off the Dolphins there. But it is up at the North Queensland Stadium there. And the last game is Rabbitohs versus Bulldogs. Hopefully that's an entertaining match. Long odds on is Bulldogs there over the Rabbitohs, but they're missing quite a few players now, the Bulldogs. So that might be a slight advantage there to the Rabbitohs, but they need to bounce back after getting tailed up in that second half by Canberra. The buys are Broncos, Raiders, Panthers, Storm, Tigers, Eels, and Warriors. So 7 buys there. So whatever you're doing next weekend, before we get to the weekend, join us, and I'll try and knock up a program to get all our anytime try scorers, keep the success going. Please subscribe, also comment, and there's one other thing you can do as well. Send it to your friends. If you like having a little bit of a flutter, please send it on to your friends, share it, and enjoy. Please, I'd like a few more comments, and any complaints, we'll hand them straight to Scott Pearce McLeod. Thanks for joining us here today on the anytime try scoring vehicle of Every Point a winner. And I'm Axel Phillips. It's time to go out in the sun. It's very cold in Sydney. We're still freezing inside here. And wrap it up for today. And we'll see you back here in the driver's seat on Thursday afternoon for the episode 27, I believe it is. All right, until then, God bless and behave yourself and be a good person, mainly, and go and get all your money from the bank from all those beautiful ePort tips last weekend. Thanks very much. Axel Phillips, over for now.